right. Well, I want to welcome everybody back to another episode of the Empowered Grief Journey podcast. I'm your host, Chris Mamoni, and I'm an acceptance coach who helps people heal from grief, loss, and trauma to discover their self-acceptance and step into their personal power. This podcast is your dedicated space for healing, growth, and transformation. Each episode shares insightful and inspirational stories along with practical tools and actionable insights that can help guide you along your healing journey. Today, I have a guest out of Canada. Her name is Tara Kadlec. Am I pronounced that right?
Catholic. Yeah.
She's a transformational coach, an intuitive guide, and the founder of Love Your Journey Incorporated. She's created that to help women embrace every path of their life. I biffed this one. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to edit this out today. This will be fun. All right. I
Do you want to
I had
start
this happen
again?
last week.
Do you want to start again? Do you want to do
You
it
know
more?
what?
Why not? Why not?
Why not?
I
You know,
can listen to your intro.
we're in the middle of a Mercury retrograde, so I totally know this is going to happen.
It's okay. It's okay. Do you want to restart the whole video or do you want to do it?
I think that's what I'll do. Make it the editing a little
Yeah.
easier. How do you say
Yeah,
your
no.
last name?
Catholic.
Kadlec. Okay.
Catholic.
I didn't
Yeah,
want to
like
biff that. I
Catholic.
got nervous because I didn't want to say
Yeah.
it wrong.
Well, you know what that is? I'll tell you what, you're probably reading into my energy because some people say it like Cadillac and it just drives me crazy. And I was already like, oh, I never taught him how to say my name.
I like
So
Kadlec. It sounds great.
yeah. Catholic. Yeah.
I
You're
like
good.
that. All right,
Okay, so do you want me to leave and come back?
no, we can just keep it on because I just cut off the video and
Oh, you do?
Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just cut it. This is going to be a funny blooper reel at some point, by the way.
Okay, I'm here for it. Chris, we're all here.
All right. Power Grief Journey podcast, take 2. Welcome to the Empower Grief Journey podcast. I'm your host, Chris Mamoni. I'm an acceptance coach who helps people heal from grief, loss, and trauma to discover their self-acceptance and step into their personal power. This podcast is your dedicated space for healing, growth, and transformation. Each episode shares insightful and inspirational stories along with practical tools and actionable insights that can help guide you along your healing journey. Today, I have Tara Kadlec with us. She's a transformational coach out of Canada. She's also an intuitive guide and the founder of Love Your Journey Incorporated. She created this to help women embrace every part of their path, finding the gifts and opportunities within grief, heartache, and transitions. Through her Divine Love Healing Collective, a monthly healing sanctuary, and her signature coaching programs, she provides a safe space for women to trust their inner wisdom, shift their perspectives, and break free of limiting beliefs. With a deep, intuitive, and naturally inspired approach, Tara empowers women to reconnect with their body and heart wisdom, knowing that they already hold the answers within. Tara, thank you so much for being on the podcast today, and thank you for being part of the blooper reel earlier.
I'm here for it all. That's the best way to be introduced. So thank you so much.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
I'm
And you're out of
happy to
Canada
be
too,
here.
by the way.
Yes, I do. I live near Calgary, Alberta. So this beautiful background I have is one of my favorite spots to go to when the snow melts. It's called Forget Me Not Pond in Kananaskis country. So it's so beautiful. It's so peaceful. I thought it would be suiting for today's call. Yeah.
I love that. I love that you have a nature background. That's why I did this background I have is I
Yeah.
always want something calming when we have these conversations because we do talk about a lot of deep stuff on this podcast, a lot of grief, a lot of trauma, but we also at the same time talk about how to move through that and also moving forward and just really showing people that grief doesn't have to be this very negative, heavy weighing thing in our life, but it can be a personal transformation process for many people.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I think
So.
grief is a gift in itself. And I know a lot of people who are probably early on in their journey will feel upset by me saying that. But I have grieved a lot in my life because grief comes in many different aspects, right? It can be a loss of not just somebody, but it can be something like a job or a career that you've had or, an experience you held or a house, etc. And at the beginning, it can feel really hard. And I always tell people to go through that process of feeling those emotions when you are grieving something, because if you don't allow yourself to do that, it gets stuck in the body. But after that place, that's when the gift and opportunities will show up, when you've gone through that first couple stages of grief and you get to see what's on the other side of it. But I would never tell somebody that once they've just, come right out into a loss. It's the hardest thing sometimes to hear when you are right in the midst of it, right?
It
Mm-hmm.
really is. A lot of people are very familiar with that initial grief process where it's very heavy. And the grief sections I've had in my life, I have gone from angry to sad to frustrated to upset to happy to joyful. It's almost like an emotional ping pong flying around in your
Yeah.
body. And so yeah, it's when you're in that initial stages of grief, it's very hard to hear certain things for that reason. You're really trying to process where you feel.
Yeah. And I mean, one of my biggest missions for myself and to teach others is to be able to understand that those emotions are normal, because for so long we were programmed to think that we need to be a certain way. Um, I was actually talking to a family member, I won't name names, but she was, telling me a loss of one of her siblings at the time. Back in the day, like it was just on to the next thing. And that broke my heart, thinking that, I lost my brother a year ago. If I didn't have the chance to embody the feelings I was feeling, still am, cried in it. No, actually, I got it, it's just a thing. And I normalize it, because if we don't normalize these emotions that can come and flood in at any time, even 2 years from now, I know I'll still be feeling the emotions as strong. I felt it with my dog that was my soulmate for 3 years. I cried every time I saw her picture. And if we don't normalize that as it's okay, then I think that that's where people, create a lot of sticky belief systems in themselves, or we get
Uh-oh. Oh, hey
addicted
Tara,
to
are you there?
substances. We start doing things that aren't in alignment, right? Oh, did you
Yeah,
lose me?
yeah. The video froze up.
Oh,
You can
sorry.
just
Oh,
you
that's
can just
interesting.
you want to repeat back what you said before technology
Somebody
cut us
really
off.
doesn't want us to normalize the feelings today.
That's what I'm getting through the inner universe right now.
Oh, goodness. We're in Mercury retrograde. Welcome. Um, no, I mean, my biggest point is just the way that we can normalize ourselves when we're in a grief journey, meaning it is okay to break down if you're in the middle of a meeting and you think of the person that passed away. It is okay to a year later still be doing that same thing. And it's okay to feel angry as well. It's when we stay in that stuck emotion for a long time. So if we're angry for weeks and months and years, that's a problem. So if we are feeling sad for weeks or months or years, that's a problem. But if we go through these little, ebbs and flows of that, and normalizing that it's just a part of life, it's just a part of how we are processing what's going on and changing. Like, it's life changing to lose something or someone, especially. And yeah, I really am trying to get people to normalize that it's okay to just feel your emotions, you know.
Yeah, I
I
when
had
I
I had a
lost.
client one. Yeah, go ahead. No, go
Oh
ahead.
no, I loved what you said there about normalizing the emotions because grief is like a giant wave. It's up and down all the time.
Yeah.
And to your point, yeah, I won't name family members, but I'll just say, my grandfather passed away and certain people moved on the day after, just done. And I sat
I
there and was
know.
like, I don't my brain couldn't process it. My
Yeah.
heart couldn't process it. And so I've been told things like I'm overly emotional or I just need to get over it and move on kind of thing. And I said, our body doesn't work that way. So it's kind of strange. I love what you said. We create limiting beliefs, by the way, through that process when we don't handle our grief a certain way. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's a big one that is really misunderstood with grief is it's a body experience. It's not a conscious mind thing. And a lot of people don't know that.
And I think like for someone to say that to you, like just move on, just get over it. I had a client that came to me, she lost her husband, and people in her small town were telling her that. And I was the only one that said to her, who cares what they say? You just feel what you need to feel right now, and for as long as you need to. There is no time limit. When the time limit to grief, it's crazy. Because there's a book that says on week 3 you should stop crying. There's not. So,
Whoa.
and can everybody's going to navigate it in a different way. Why? Because we all have our own beliefs and experiences from childhood till now, right? So for the people that are telling us just get over it, they've probably been programmed to think that way. That's the truth of it. They grew up being programmed to think that it is not okay to keep grieving and crying 3 months in or 2 weeks in or whatever their thing is through their lens. And let them think that way. You're not going to prove them any different. Just stay on your path and your journey. And that's when things will start to align for you, and you'll start to learn to live life in the flow of the grief rather than feel like it's bumpy, right? It gets bumpy when we're told, stop crying. Why are you doing that? Aren't you over it yet? Like, oh, it just is so aggravating to me. And, when I say that, I just feel this like little vision of, our little self being told that either by teachers or parents or grandparents or whoever around us that, like boys shouldn't cry, right? Boys don't
Yeah.
cry or whatever you used to hear. I mean, I wasn't a boy, so I don't know, but I can just imagine. I
Oh
know what
yeah.
I heard on the playground, right? So yes, it's a lifelong journey to deprogram what we've learned, of course, but I love that journey. I find it fascinating, and I don't do it as a way to make people suffer through the change of rewiring our brain. I do it from a lens of curiosity and seeking the truth of who we really are and what we've been all along, whether we're in a transition of grief or not. It's it's really beautiful. There's so much opportunity in that. I mean, I couldn't imagine if I wasn't able to cry when I want to. The pent up feeling I would feel inside, of having to stuff it down, to stuff whatever it is, you know. And I've been in situations and relationships with others that have told me to be, stuff what I was feeling down, or like you said, you're over emotional or you're overreactive. I've heard lots of people say that to me in my life. Okay, then don't talk to me. It's just me. It's just who I am. So you can choose to shut the phone down and never call me again and move on from life, or you can actually embrace who I am as a human soul on this earth, doing the best I can with what I've been dealt with and what I'm going through. And also part of what people discover about themselves is allowing ourselves to understand that your idea of grief and your journey of grief is very different than mine, and accepting that, right? Accepting that
Yeah.
everybody's grief journey or any journey they're on is everybody has a unique journey. Everybody. There is no
Yeah.
standard way to grief, right? There's no, yeah.
Yeah, I get asked that sometimes with coaching that I do. I get asked like, "Do you tell people what to do?" And I said, "No." I said, how can I even do that?" I mean, I said, I've talked
Right.
to, I talked to people that haven't even listened to my podcast before, and I said, the people that are
Yeah.
on my show are these people that have gone through some very heavy stuff, very very heavy trauma and grief and loss in a not so fun way. But they've made something of it, and that's what I think so beautiful about this process is I wouldn't be a grief coach if my son didn't die. I wouldn't be here. I can
Yeah.
say that my friend that's a reverend and a pastor, had he not attempted suicide and not learned how to process his grief from losing multiple people to gunshot wounds, he wouldn't be where he is. So
Yeah.
I try to tell people that grief is really a very personal transformation process, and as a coach, I can guide you there with questions. I can try to help you pull out those emotions and feelings so you can see them. But it's really about you discovering that process. And sometimes we do need somebody there that's supportive and kind and understanding and helps us see those things because One of my guests, about month and a half ago, he lost his friend to a house fire. He lost another friend to a gunshot. He lost his uncle to a gunshot. He was on a wedding vacation with his wife, and his wife said he doesn't feel emotions, and he said, "What? What? I feel things." He cried for 4 days after that, 4 days straight, because he had all this repent, pressed up emotion from being told, "Tough boys don't cry, men don't cry,
Yeah,
like get over it." Um, and so I thought that was really powerful, as men, that I've talked to men who actually open up and don't see vulnerability as a weakness, but they see it as a strength. And that's a big difference. Something I'm trying to break in the grief space is this concept in society that women are overly emotional. Yeah, women are emotional because they've been taught how to feel. They know how to understand that. Us men are not emotional because we're told not to. And so
totally.
I'm trying to break this stigma around those things, because if we look at masculine and feminine energy, if we look at that and say when it's out of whack, things get crazy. But if we end up in this balance where we have a balance of masculine and feminine energy, meaning that we both feel emotions, we both understand things, we both live in this place of learning and growth, that those stigmas are actually false and they're actually damaging to this healing process. So I'm trying to shed light on the world on that one.
Well, and the other thing too is like the what is the definition of emotional? Like I don't know what Wikipedia would say, but just in general, the lens of what people think the word of emotional quote unquote is, right? Because here's the thing, if let's take your friend as an example who was not expressing, let's say, the emotion of sadness or crying, let's say that, right? But he was actually happy in emotion, whether that was numb, like a numb emotion, like because numbness is considered an emotion. If it was disconnect, like we're all emotional and all everything. You're feeling an emotion right now in this moment, so am I. Everybody is. So it's like putting the lens on what somebody classifies as word emotion, because it's just a stigma, a way of people, you know.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, I could
it's
go on a whole different tangent about this, but like
well, it's like I tell
but it's
people in the grief process
yeah.
that emotions are not meant to be controlled. This is the thing that people misunderstand about
No.
grief, is they say, when they say get over it, let it go, grief is part of life, you just got to accept it. When they write things off like that, what we're actually doing is trying to control an emotion, and emotions are intangible. I can't hold them in my hands right now. I can't. Just what it is.
Yeah.
Now, when we try to say we're going to control something intangible, or something that's out of our control, by the way, we're now putting ourselves in a place, in our own self, of being out of control. And that's really what happens in the process. So I try to tell people in the grief process, those emotions are powerful messages, and what you need to do is listen to them. Don't ignore them. Don't try to suppress them. Listen to
Yeah.
them and let them out, because when you do experience those emotions, you'll find out there's something very different. When I lost my son, for example, I had a lot of anger for about 3 to 6 months, just lots of it. I ended up smashing my foot at one point, making a box for him. And long story short, in that very painful moment, by the way, that anger emotion that I thought was anger, it wasn't anger. It was love and sadness. It was depression,
Yeah.
because I missed my kid that much. And so I share that example a lot, because I always tell people that initial emotion you might feel might not even be the one that's actually underneath there, the one that's actually hurting. And when you do, by the way, go from that place of outwardly it's anger, but deep down it's love, when you find that deep down thing, you feel a calm come over your body. It's because you're listening to the emotion. You're giving it space to be. And
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of the grief process, that not a lot of people are given space to even understand that. And that would really radically change their healing process.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I do with my clients, right? So whether it's a one-to-one or in a group setting, I don't even know what I call it, because I kind of combined all of my feeling modalities and all the information I've learned over the last couple decades and put it in my own. But I number one is holding space. Like the best gift we could give somebody is to learn how to hold space for them, to allow them to fully feel seen and heard and understood and not dismissed, and just allow them to express themselves. That's the first thing that I do. Sometimes people come to me and they've never ever been held in a way that I hold them. And that in itself is transformational for somebody. I know when I was navigating things after my concussion and after my brother's, passing, I had a practitioner that I said, you just hold the most impeccable space I've never seen anybody hold before. And what it allowed me to do was it allowed me to find the answers within myself. And that's huge. So when I lead somebody through that, I hold the space for them to be fully seen and understood. And then I guide them through a process of finding where the emotion's stuck in their body. And, their eyes are closed if they feel safe to do that. And then we talk about that what they're seeing. So everybody has a different way. So some people will actually see something, they'll visualize it. Others will hear something. Some people will say, well, I feel cold, or, it's an interesting thing. And we learn more about where it's feeling stuck. What is the actual thing that's there, that's tied to it? So sometimes you might think you're feeling sad. Where's the sadness in the body? Let's say it's in the solar plex in the stomach area. But actually what you see is like you at 3 years old. Right? So often things that we experience in this time frame are related to past experiences, which potentially are the reasons why some things and some people think we might be overreacting. But what it means is we're having a bigger emotional response to something because it's tied in with other experiences. So when my brother passed away, I mean, he is like, just to honor the brilliance of Cory, my brother had Down syndrome, and he was the most brilliant human. Like, I can't describe to you the gift that he had in this world for all of us. And he had a sense of humor. He showed unconditional love. He was stubborn as all heck, and he really helped transform people to figure out, like, yes, he was triggering to people because of his stubbornness, but he also showed us a lens of love and laughter and magic in life that we all will miss. Like, that's the biggest thing I was grieving this year, was that childlike wonder that he would bring to multiple conversations a day on FaceTime. That was gone. It's just gone like that. And I don't have kids, right? So I don't get that in young kids where some people might have had that. I don't have any of that. And so all of a sudden, that magic in life that I was receiving from him, which was such a gift, I now have had to find it myself again, right? And it's interesting when you have a reminder through somebody else to remember what joy is and remember what all of these things were. And for somebody who has suffered, I suffered so hard with depression. I was misdiagnosed for many years with something else for like 20 years. So like I've dealt with a lot in my life and have navigated a lot of transitions, and grieving that process is one thing. But Cory was always somebody that helped me like remind myself to always find myself again, like that inner child inside. We would laugh and we, would watch silly shows and talk about X-Files and, do all of these things that, people would think is not what you should be doing. You should have your head down, you work and you make money and all these things. But Cory showed me a different way of life. He showed me a way to weave in the natural rhythms of your body. And if you're tired, you nap. And if you're hungry, you eat. And all of these things where we forget it because we're on, a normalized schedule, like you have to start work here, there. And so he was this mirroring reflection my whole life, and really trying to get me to spin life in a magical way, for me to see the joy that's always there in front of us, even in the silly moments, right? Whether it be a fart joke or not, like, I mean, that's what he would do. And that's a hard thing to miss. So when people are going through a grief journey, it's often because that person, so if it's a person or their animal, represents a nugget of something that now feels like it's completely out of their experience, but it's not the truth. That's just what you feel in this moment. But actually what they've been mirroring and teaching you this whole time is inside of you. It always has been. every single person in our lives is a mirror of ourselves in some way. And the pieces that we love about somebody, it's within us. We just need to find it again. And it's about coming home to ourselves. So that's sort of what, as I've been dealing with this biggest grief journey in my life, I'm also teaching, the people I work with the same thing of what they're navigating through and the transitions they're going through. It's all inside them at all times. And it's just being able to take the space to have that show up. Right?
Yeah,
We tend to not take the space for ourselves, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
you touched on something really big there. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you brought up what I like to consider celebrating that person that's no longer with us. And
Yeah.
I think that I love that you guys watch X-Files, by the way. I'm a big fan. I
Yeah.
I started watching it a couple months ago, and I love the banter between Scully and Mulder. I just
Yeah.
like he's Mr. like out there kind of crazy, and she's like, okay, really in here, man. Like gotta
Well,
get you grounded a little bit.
Cory used to nickname me Scully when he was in high school. That was my name. So for a long time. And now that you say it like that, I was like, oh, I see.
I love that
Yeah, that's
I
funny.
love that you celebrate him though in your life, and I wanted to ask you about that more directly. What are some things you
Yeah.
do, maybe daily or throughout the year, to celebrate your time with Corey, or are there some other things in life that just always remind you of him that kind of brings a smile to you when you think about him?
Yeah, I mean, my sister and I are true believers of, having an altar for somebody. Like, so when someone passes away, um, I've been house sitting this year, so I haven't had my own home. But if I had my own home, I would have had a candle that represented Corey and at the beginning, and I would have lit it for him. I didn't feel like I wanted to do that at other people's houses, just in case. But I have an altar where um, Corey loved Jurassic Park, was his other huge love of movies. So Jurassic Park, and I had bought him a light. So I lit that light instead. So in the first 6 months of that grief journey, I lit that light every night. So that was over the summer. So he passed away on April 23rd. And that was my way of, having him come to life at nighttime when I was like, decompressing. But what's interesting is he would light the light on his own if I forgot to. So if I would wake up in the morning and I'd be like, whoa, the light's on, I knew it was him because I'm a true believer of that. So he would come and show his way to me to let me know he's here all the time. And so yeah, sorry. He's always here. Everybody's always here. That's my belief. And I'm just so grateful for moments like that. That's like the reality. I'm so grateful that I can feel that and teach others to feel that when somebody passes away because, um, as an example, one of his care staff who he loved so much towards the end of his life, she called him his wife. And she wrote me yesterday and she said, I wore my Jurassic Park t-shirt today and look what drove by, and a Jurassic Jeep, no joke, a Jurassic Park Jeep with the label on it drove past her. That's the magic of my brother. That happens all day, every day to all people that knew him. And of course, that's the lens that we look at because we look at through the magical ways of life and how he could show up. I remember visiting my sister in BC and being on a ferry, and we got to see orcas in the water. Like Cory would always, every day, ask my brother-in-law, did you see orcas today? Because he drove a boat to get to his work. And so here, my sister and I are on this ferry, and there we are seeing, that's just, and that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen every day occurrences. So to really celebrate him, sometimes I don't even have to because he does it for me. He shows me the thing to just like almost celebrate myself. It's a weird, I don't know how to explain it, but it's, if I've been having a funky time, like we all go through funky times in our life, or not, maybe not feeling good or whatever it is that we're struggling with, there's a way that the past loved ones will come in to give us the guidance that we need to show us how to come back to ourselves. if we can't find it ourselves. So I don't I don't know, I do so many things. Like I have a Jurassic Park jacket I gave him. I'll wear it some days when I'm feeling like I want comfort. um I will look at videos that I've taken. If I can recommend anything, is take as many videos as you can of people that you love. There is something so magical about watching them again when they've passed. And I learned that a long time ago when my dog Rugby passed away, is I had wished I had taken more videos back then. And that was, quite, just the smartphones were coming in, for the last couple of years of her life. But it's so magical to be able to see that, and to see him in life form, not just through a picture, to see that. So that's one thing that I really recommend people to take as many videos as they can of people that they love, because you'll want it. And everybody said that. Nobody else took as many as me, but I heard again and again from all the family members, we're so grateful you took these, especially in the first month of his passing, to be able to look back and hear his laughter. Oh, like, to have one more day like that, you
I
know?
think a lot of people wish
Yeah.
and feel for that. That's the
Yeah.
I felt that way. I was very grateful when my son passed, because the nurse that was there had a photographer local in the area. And I never would have thought of this, by the way, because I was in an emotional wreck at that point.
Yeah.
But she hired a photographer to come to the hospital, and now I've
Mm,
got 75 pictures of my son, and I don't share them with everybody, just because people can't
yeah.
handle that kind of thing. But for me, there's days I have moments where I said, I'm grateful that nurse got a photographer. I'm grateful for that, because I
Yeah.
I would be sitting back now saying I didn't do that, and I wasn't in a place where I could. And that's so I love your point of telling people to take photos and take videos. When my grandfather passed, I was really mad because I didn't take pictures with him. And I partially didn't want to remember him the way in that moment. I didn't want to remember that.
Yeah.
But I was mad I didn't save voicemails for some reason. I was mad I didn't save
Mm,
something with his voice. And my cousin, this happened like 2 years after he passed. My cousin was like, I have an audio from Grandpa singing Happy Birthday. And I was like, you got to be kidding
oh,
me right now. And anyway, it lit me up like a crazy person. Like, just the
yeah.
same way you brought up with your photos, like it brings you back to that place where you say, I'm not going to have another day with this person, but this is a snapshot in time that I can still remember what they sounded like or what they looked like, and it can draw those memories for you.
Yeah. Well, and even, Cory had, two types of dementia. So, he had Alzheimer's and vascular dementia. That's not actually how he passed away. But with those early stages, I remember listening to a voicemail that, because with dementia, they change, right? They're still themselves, but they start to change, and their, personality changes a little bit, their behavior changes. And Cory was very loving for majority of his life, and you could see the tragedy that he went through, with some things that we had gone through prior to him passing, which is a whole other podcast in itself. But with that, I would always go back to this voicemail he left me, where he sang to me. He always called me Georgie, because I could see that I would never get that from him again, even when he was alive, right? So I knew that I wanted to kind of keep capturing these moments of him, because I knew that with dementia they slowly fade over time. And he was obviously taken way faster than we had hoped or realized. And in some ways, I'm kind of grateful that he didn't progress, where a lot of people really struggle with that, because they change so much with that kind of diagnosis. But yeah, there's something really brilliant. And the other thing too that I wanted to say is, because I'm a huge nature lover, as you can tell. So one of the other ways that I love to connect in with Cory is I talk to him when I'm on a walk.
Mm.
So so something I tell my clients too is that if they're grieving, you can write them a letter. You can say, so when my dog Rugby passed away, I would write her a letter instead of journaling to the universe or whatever. I would write Rugby a letter and tell her what's going on, what she missed today, and as a way to feel connected. With my brother, because I've evolved in my ways of tapping in, is that I can just sit and have a conversation and be outside in nature. And Cory loved being outside on the farm. Like, we grew up on a farm, and he just, that was his favorite place to be. So I think when I'm outside, I can feel that connection to what he felt when he was on that land, right, where you feel open and spacious and free. um and I think it's important, like, when, to me anyways, I feel, and what I've seen with clients, is to really take time when you are grieving, to just take that time to honor that space, have a conversation, whether it's through paper or even audio message to yourself. If some people are reluctant to journal, some people are, I'll say just leave audio messages as if you're talking to them. Just do whatever you can to get it out of your head and out of your body, so that you're not storing it inside. So um for those that don't want to seek a counselor or something like that, and you want to do it on your own, audio messaging yourself is a great way to do it, to get it out of the body. Same thing with writing. I also suggest being creative. So if you are into art, or anything, you could draw, you could sketch, you could doodle, color, whatever, paint, just to express what's going on. There's so many ways to navigate grieving, and showing that celebration of honoring loved ones. Like, there's so many ways. I mean, I've
Yeah,
had
I
some people write blogs about it the whole time, just keep writing everything that they want about their loved one. I mean, there's no wrong way, is what I'm trying to say. So it would be dependent on
yep.
who comes to me. I would get this intuitive nudge about what to kind of share with them that maybe would help them, and they get the answer themselves by me opening that space up to tell them that it's okay to do that. Because that's the other thing, is some people think it's not okay, or what is that, I've never heard that before. So I just open the pathway for them to see a possibility of connecting with their loved ones, even when they're not here yet, and whatever resonates. Yeah.
I think what you said there, you said a lot of things that were very powerful, but I wrote a letter the night my grandfather passed. I wrote a letter to him, and
Mm,
I still to this day cannot read it, because it's just very, lots of anger,
yeah.
lots of sadness in it, but it got a lot of that stuff out. And I think that's what a lot of
Yeah.
people might be nervous about. When my son Caden passed, I told my wife before we cremated him, I said, write him a letter. I said, he'll hear it. And I'm going to preface for listeners, I am one of those people that I do believe in, that this world we live on Earth is just the small stepping stone to the next thing we're going to be off to, as
Yeah.
souls. And so I used to be shy about sharing that, but I'm not anymore. Just who I am.
Yeah.
I've had too many experiences in my life that I can't really account for, and I don't really have a way to say what the heck it was, but it happened. But I wrote a letter to my son before we cremated him, and I wrote, a little bit about his parents, us. I wrote how much we loved and cared about him, and I wrote all those things. And as I wrote that, it was hard. I cried a lot. It was very hard to do. But at the same time, like you said, it gets all that released out of you. And it can be very, I won't go so far as to say it's going to soothe your soul by any means, but it'll
Mm,
release it enough where you can start to kind of feel the weight come off just a little bit, so you can
yeah.
start walking forward in that process. But to your to your other point, though, there is no wrong way to grieve. There's no wrong way. There's no one way to do things.
No.
I've met people on this journey that I'm on that writing is their massive outlet. They don't do video, they don't do social media
Yeah.
stuff, but they just blog. They write down in journals, they write down articles, they write down letters. That's their thing. I've also seen other people, create books, create memoirs, volunteer at nonprofits, people that raise money for certain things like Down syndrome, or whatever you want to label
Yeah.
it. So there's really no wrong way to do your grief process. So I'm really grateful you said that today. And I always encourage my listeners and my audience, figure out what's right for you, because what's right for you might not be right for somebody else. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, I
Um,
think what's interesting about that, Chris, is like, when we're in school, we're programmed to learn a certain way, like sit in your desk, and write the thing on the, like, I don't know what it is now where people learn, but like, I wrote everything down. The teacher wrote on the classboard, and we were like really programmed to learn a different way, but actually everybody learns differently. So it's
Mhm.
no, so it's, so just, I'm anybody listening, this is your permission to give yourself the permission to learn and do things your own way. And it's okay to do that. So if nobody's ever told you it's not, it is really okay. And that's the message I get from your son, Chris, is actually, if you're okay with me sharing, because a
Yeah.
message came through. But I got this message that when you said about just honoring your own path and just claiming that you believe in, that there's another world beyond us. I got this message from him just to say to claim that for yourself, to like really step into that and to celebrate who you really are, because that's what you would have told your child, right?
I
You
would
would
have.
have, right? And that's what he's like telling you to do that, because I think that's the gift here. That's one of the gifts, anyways, that I see for you, is this blossoming of your path and blossoming of who you are, and really owning that journey for yourself.
I
That's what I
I
feel for
appreciate
you.
that.
Yeah.
I'll share a little bit since we got personal. I'll share a little part of my past. I lived too long in conformity in my own life, and I'm
Mm,
sure share this as a big message for listeners today. I grew up in a world where I was always compared to other people. I was told I was not doing things that were normal, not to expectation. And every time I
yeah.
lived in that conformity world, I'll share with you guys, I got very depressed. I got very angry. I had a lot of hard
Yeah.
emotions. I was living so far out of alignment that my life literally fell apart, and I'll openly share that. It went to hell. I don't have a better way to say it.
Yeah.
Um, and so what I will share is when I did lose my son, everything changed in that moment. And so that's why I always say I'm grateful for my son, how the way that all played out, him passing, the whole experience. I'm grateful for
Yeah.
how it happened. And I know that's going to scare some listeners to hear me say that, because they're going to say, I've seen it with people say, oh my God, you lost a child as a stillborn. How can you say that? Or how can you feel that? And I say, when you see the gifts that come out of those moments, and I don't expect people to see this in the moment when it happens because it's very, very,
No.
very hard. But when you get to
Yeah.
that place in your healing process where you can look back and reflect as an observer, you will see that those things happen for you. They didn't happen to you. And there's often a gift underneath that. And that's what happened, what Tara shed light on today from my son. When my son passed, I said, forget the world, forget conformity, forget all this BS most people do. I'm not doing it. I'm going my own way now. I don't care what happens.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about things. I have people worry all the time about me. They always say, "Oh, we're worried about you financially. Are you going to be okay? Are you going to be this? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Well, you really should be doing this." And I ignore it. I block it out on purpose, because
Yeah.
when we go through grief, when we go through loss, even I've heard it come through. I feel like I hear Cory through you a lot when you talk about him. I don't feel like I'm listening to you sharing a memory of him. I feel like I'm listening to him. And that's what I think is so beautiful about the story you shared today, because I think Cory put you on a path maybe you didn't even fully see yet. That I think he puts you on a path to your own greatness in your own way, by the way. And that's what I've heard come through a lot. Like I've seen the reactions when you talk about Jurassic Park, when you talk about the X-Files, when you talk about, I remember you shared with me too, when Cory did have dementia, that there were times he was really loving and times he got really angry. And I
Oh
think
yeah, it was wild.
like, but I think he taught you so much through that chasm of emotions. I think he taught you
Mm.
so much about how to work with people on that arrayed spectrum of
Yeah.
emotion. So I still feel like he
Listen,
gave you a lot
like,
of gifts.
it's a lot, because we created a home for him, my sister and I. Like I said, it could be a whole different conversation here that we have in terms of what we navigated there. And I'll probably make my own podcast one day about it. But in that in that year, it was so difficult because it doesn't come easy to create a home for somebody with a disability, with funding and all the things and hiring staff, etc. But all number one, all of my tools I had of intuition led me to hire the right people at the right time. That was one thing. And Cory had great wisdom of who needed to take care of him and who shouldn't. He was very clear about that. And but why not? And so he had a message, like, and this is how much I had to advocate for him, is that somebody with a disability, if they live in a group home or something like that, they're limited in terms of their possibilities of what can happen. So as an example, he lived in a home with, let's say, 5 other gentlemen, and let's say their outing for the day was a movie. If one of them got sick or one of them didn't want to go, then none of them went because they didn't have enough staff to have one at home with them and one to go to the movie, which is crazy to me because it's like, I love freedom. Like, I'm going to tell you that right now. I love freedom. I love to be able to go to get a coffee if I want to, right? And I bet you feel the same way. And so I would sit in these meetings with these people and go, that you went to Tim Hortons or Starbucks today. How many times did you go this week? And all of these things to give them this ability to see how limiting these experiences are for people that deserve the same as you and I. And so I wish I had done this a long time ago for my brother. Like, that's the biggest regret I have, is I wish we had done this a long time ago. I wish that I had the health to be able to do it a long time ago, but I didn't. But there's such a gift and an opportunity to have been in that home with him and him show us all the emotions that anybody could. Because what happens is somebody with dementia has a lot of emotions. Like, they cry, they laugh, they get angry, they're fearful. They're all of them, and it can be within minutes or seconds or hours, right? It's all in one day. It's not based on, what experience they had. Sometimes it can just be quick little things. And it was really a wild ride, and you really have to know your patients. And so a lot of it was, really teaching me to, like, oh, I'm so glad the year before I learned somatic healing, like learned how to get into the body and understand how to take a breather and, what am I feeling in this moment when he is yelling at somebody, or all of those things. And it was hard. It's hard too, because you're seeing this loved one that usually hugs you or usually says I love you 15,000 times a day to you, and he's no longer saying that. And so you're already grieving somebody that's changing, that's still here. I mean, like, I don't know how else to say it, but it was a real wild ride, roller coaster of a lot of different things to navigate. And it's just not even in general, like, you having somebody with dementia is one thing, but having somebody with Down syndrome with dementia is a whole other level, because people with disabilities, intellectual disabilities, have their own magic. They really do. They have their own magic and ways of expressing themselves, and you having to get to know what their communication style is. What is their body wisdom that they're telling you in a different way that's not like, oh, my tummy hurts? It could be something totally different. And so to know that, plus the dementia, plus other health issues like his diabetes and all of those things, it was a lot. And yet I'm so grateful for every single moment of it. During it, and talking about how you said, like, you would never tell somebody at the death of their loved one that it's a gift, because you don't feel it in that moment. You're angry, you're pissed off, you're like, what the fuck? Why did this happen to me? There's a lot. And like I said, if anybody's listening to this and you know someone that just lost someone, don't say that to them. Just hold space for them. Just hold space for them. Allow them to process their emotions. How can I support you today? Right? How can I make you a meal? Just give them ways, like, because here's the other thing: when people are going through grief, some people don't know how to help them or what to say. And I couldn't even cook for myself. Okay, I couldn't even know what meal to take or what anything. And so I would have loved if any of my friends would have had a meal to my door. Didn't happen, but that would have been a great help, right? So knowing that people aren't thinking straight when they're grieving, they need support, they need the love, they need the food, they need the water, they need the basic reminders, and then allowing them to hold space to just purge the emotion. That's the brilliance of knowing a grief journey. After that, the gifts will show up if they allow it. But
that's
yeah.
That's the thing that, I fought a lot when I lost my son. I fought it when I lost my grandfather. There were so many people trying to fix me, trying to
Oh yeah,
like you need to move forward kind of thing. And I was going, you can tell me those things all you want, and it's going in this ear and it's going out this one just as fast as you say it. And that's something I learned as I became a grief coach, was that people don't want to be fixed. Grievers don't want to be fixed. We just don't. We will figure that out. I will tell you that. But what we do
yeah,
want, by the way, is just somebody to hold space for us, somebody to make us
yes,
feel seen, heard, and understood. And I'll
yeah,
be honest with you, I've talked to people going through grief, and sometimes they sound crazy, but guess what? I sounded crazy when I was in that world. So I understand it and I get it. And so
yeah,
when I listen to them, and sometimes they say like that might not make sense, or I'm not making any sense with what I'm saying, and I'm going, it makes sense. Don't worry about if it makes sense to me. It makes sense. And I say that
yeah,
because I like to give them space, because um what a lot of people don't know is, in grief, this thing up here is like scrambled eggs in the morning when you're going through grief. I mean, you have so much rattling around up here that it's going to come out really just I don't even know the right way to say it, but like if you broke a glass on the floor that shattered, that's how it comes out. And so you're really trying to pick up the pieces. You're trying to make sense of what you're feeling and what you're experiencing and what you're working through. And when people don't give you space for that, it's really hard. It's almost like putting a puzzle together, and somebody comes by and steals five pieces, and you get most of it put together and go, but I don't have this thing. And somebody's holding those pieces over there saying, but just move on. It's okay. You feel that tug of
mhm,
war a lot. So, I've always told people that it doesn't matter if it makes sense or not. It doesn't matter. The thing that matters is
yeah,
you processing and getting it out, because it's through that process that you will find a way to heal yourself, but you will also at the same time be able to make sense of it for you. And that's the only person that matters, is you. It doesn't matter about Chris, doesn't matter about Tara, it matters about you and how you're going to handle that and how you're going to work through that. It's really giving you the space to do that. And I think that's the biggest gift that I have through my loss. I'm sure you have it as well, with what you've gone through with Cory. But that's our gift that we found, is we get to go help other people in this grief journey, because we're going to be the
yeah,
ones that hold space for them and give them the ability to work through those things on their own time at their own pace. We don't tell them you have a week or 6 months, like I've heard some people say, which is crazy to me. I've
yeah.
seen people feel better in 3 months. I've seen people take 10 years. I can't say one way is right, you know?
Well, and I mean, that's one of the biggest pieces, even if it's not a loss of someone, and let's say somebody's just navigating a grief of a job that they loved. Like I hear it lots right now. People that have been in the job for 10, 15 years and they all of a sudden got let go. That is a whole level of grief that happens that is shocking, just like a death of a loved one. And we all just have to, you know, like people expect you to just pick up and go for the job interview. Well, you can't. There's stuff in the middle of that. Like you have to grieve what the shock of it, the plan that was is no longer there. There's so much about that, and people really need to honor that piece. And I was really lucky to have a house sit this after Cory passed away. I was living on a ranch for 4 months this summer in northern BC. And yes, it was really remote, but I'm going to tell you, to be on that land by myself and my dog and nature and the wisdom of my brother coming through nature was something I feel incredibly blessed to have gone through. And I feel like he navigated that house sit for me, also navigated me leaving it. But when we're talking about signs, there's signs all the time, like all the time. I'll go all the time. I'll see things like Cory's other favorite show was Friends. I'll see Friends stuff all over the place. Like if you're in a store, you're thinking of something, and all of a sudden they'll appear, or his favorite number, or like a show will come on. I mean, and it's always the right timing too. And I think that that's such a, I don't know, I just feel so blessed that I have received the tools I needed prior to all of this happening. And when I say tools, I'm talking about tapping into the curiosity of life, and leading with curiosity and like looking at things through the lens of curiosity. Because if I didn't have that prior to Cory's death, I think I would be probably in a really deep depression, right? It was like everything leading up to this point, including my car accident, which stopped my life ahead of all of this. All of it has led up to this moment for me being able to navigate this journey of the loss of somebody I couldn't even imagine leaving my life. So leading with gratitude is also a really important thing. So even if you don't feel grateful after the grief journey, like when the grief journey starts, if you can just find gratitude in what is in the moment, whether it's you had a good sleep or whether you got a shower that day or the sun is out or it's clean sheet day, feel that gratitude because every day, even I know, so you know what clean sheet day is. It's like the best. You're right.
That's a big deal. That's a
So,
big deal.
so if you can tap into these little moments of gratitude every single day while you're navigating that, it'll get easier. And I'm not talking 15 things to be grateful for. I'm talking one thing a day, one new thing a day. I'll give somebody in the first couple of weeks the same thing every day if they need to. But I mean, there's so many little tips and tricks that we could give people, right? When you're navigating these things to kind of get yourself in a like a flow of life where you're not feeling so deep in the heavy grief, because grief doesn't always have to be heavy and suffering either. Mm-hmm. Right? That's the other piece to this, is that grief can actually look like joyful crying or um, magical moments of things coming through that gives us an emotional release of, let's say, the crying or the anger, but it also can be very joyful to have us think about those things in a different way. And I also think that everybody's gift or opportunity that comes through their grief journey is going to be very much their own. Your gift and opportunity is very different than mine, and everybody's is going to be different because we're all here for different reasons. And so, yeah, I mean, there's so many things I could say that,
That's what makes the
that
world the good place that it is, by the way. It's overlooked right now with all the political economic crap going on in the world, but at the reality
yeah,
land, why I bring it down to this, by the way, grief brings us back to the humility that one day we're all going to die. Every single one of us is going to face that. And by the way, we're going to have previews of it for people that passed before us. And so
yeah,
what I like to say about grief is the following, is that we get distracted in life with all these things going around us: jobs, commuting, politics, economic stuff, like all this stuff going on in the world, wars, all that stuff. Reality land is, it's all distraction. That's what all that is. It's just a distraction thing to entertain your life and take up time. In the grief process, though, is where we really find out and get reminded of what life is really about. And that's the beautiful thing
totally.
about grief. And so when you remove all that stuff, and when you're in grief, by the way, there's no labels, there's no right and wrong, there's no like one said way to do things. It's a very fluid process that's individual to our own, but also, like you said, individual gifts that we give back to the world. And I always think about, which is why I love being in this space, by the way, if most of us went to that place on an everyday process, everyday space, if we all went there instead of where the rest of the world goes, how different would this place actually be? Because I think we
Yeah,
would celebrate our individuality of our gifts and who we are, and we would have a stronger sense of community and a very stronger sense of society. I've learned on this grief journey that there's so many gifts that come out of it, for everybody. And yeah, I've had so many guests on my show that I'm dead serious would never be entrepreneurs. They would never be authors of books. They would never be speakers. They'd never be coaches. They would never be helping
yeah,
the world and the capacity in which they do, had they not
yeah,
gone through that awful time of life. And I just think about how beautiful that is, coming
yeah,
full circle.
totally. And you know, our world is a world of duality. We will always have darkness, but we wouldn't know the light without the darkness. So no matter where we're at and what we're going through, whether it was the pandemic, whether it's political uprising, whatever it is, we're always going to see that. And so it's your choice. Like it's my choice and it's your choice. It's everybody else's choice to take responsibility for our lives and stay on our path of what we're wanting to create. It's not about ignoring what's going on. That's totally different. But in reality, the world, you'll see it through what lens you're wanting to see it through, right? So
Yeah.
I could easily watch the news every day and see life in a different way. I'm sure it's why I don't do it. And I choose to lead with love no matter what is going on, because love and kindness and compassion is the way that feels good for me. It feels light and right for me, and it makes me feel way better than the dark and heavy world that fear can overtake us. There's a place for all of that. There's a reason why we feel angry in life, and it's a reason why we feel for this, that emotion creates change for us. But listen, like, my biggest lesson with Cory passing away is life is short. And so I really had to look at the way that I was leading my life. I mean, my car accident happened, it stopped my life, it stopped my business. All of these things led up to this moment. And I'm still not entirely sure where my business is going and where my life is going and where I'm going to live next. But I am definitely knowing that life is too short for me to live any other way than the way that I want to live and how I want to create my life. Because if I don't do it, if I don't live my life the way that I want to live it, no one else is going to do it for me. And so I have to be the one to step into that power and into that space of possibility and tap into what that is and not get off track, because it's so easy what you're saying with what's going on. It is so easy to get off track of what our path is. And when you're in grief, it can feel really wobbly, like, oh, what am I doing? I feel like I'm on a boat all day. Like, am I tipping over to the other side? What am I doing? And so here it is. I'm almost a year into Cory's passing, and right now things probably have flared up in a different way for me, but I'm not getting panicky about it because I know that there is the breakthrough coming, because I've done this before with so many things and so many journeys. There is always, if I know that it's temporary, what I'm feeling and what things are coming up, then I know on the other side of that, that's where the light's going to shine in, and I'm going to climb that and go into that path because the light is shining for me to keep going. And so it's about trusting that. And so to use whatever is happening as you're grieving to understand it's all going to lead you to where you need to go, but you have to honor it from the place that feels good for you, not anything else, but what feels good for you. Because what's best for you is actually best for everyone else as well.
I love the way you
That's
put
the thing.
I love the
Yes.
way you said that. And that's a perfect way for us to wrap up the podcast. And I'm just really grateful that I had you as a guest today. This has been very insightful, and I think people are going to have a lot to take away. No matter if you're early in your grief journey or you're stuck in grief for whatever reason, I've been there myself. I think there's going to be a lot of takeaways from this episode. I want to wrap up as we get to the end here with a few questions. The first one I have to start with is, what was Cory's favorite Friends character?
Joey.
Joe. I love it.
he, would, he would say, how you doing, to all the pretty ladies he'd meet.
Ah, Cory's a ladies man.
Definitely. Yeah, yeah.
I love that. And
Yeah.
I love Chandler. He's my favorite. He's just
Oh,
like
yeah, me too.
very quirky and off in his own world, but he's an awesome dude.
Yeah, yeah.
Who's your favorite Friends character?
I love them all because they all have such quirkiness about them, right? I love them.
Yep.
There's always just something I love about all of them. And I've watched that show I don't know how many times.
I mean, it's one of those
Yeah.
shows you can rewatch and not get bored with. It's one of those shows.
No. Yeah, I know.
But
It's so brilliant.
so I also ask all my guests this question at the end of the show. If you ran into somebody who is early on in their grief process or stuck in their grief process right now, what's one or two things really quickly that you would share with them as they navigate their healing journey?
Well, I would say to just honor what comes up for them. So honor the feelings that come in every single day and to not bypass them and honoring them and whatever feels right for them. So whether it's dancing it out in your living room, going for a nature walk, listening to your favorite music in the bathtub, processing it through journaling, but allow yourself to like feel the emotion and process it out. And then to follow that with something that can bring you joy. So whether that is having your favorite cup of tea, reading a good book, or calling a friend, going to a movie, even by yourself, doing something that can bring joy to your life every single day. Doesn't mean it's there for 24 hours, but just to allow yourself to see the glimpse of it every day would be really helpful.
I
Yeah.
love that. And Tara, I also like to ask if people want to connect with you online, where can we
Yeah.
find you?
So a couple places on my website, loveyourjourney.ca. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. Instagram is at Love Your Journey Inc. And they can send me a DM. Tell me that they saw the podcast. I would love to hear the comments. I love to have conversations in my DMs with people. I love using audio messages. I like to hear what people's journey is. And yeah, if anybody wants any help at all, whether it's through me or through another, I know a lot of people, right? So if there's something that I see somebody else would be helpful to help them navigate through their grief journey, I'd be really happy to share that path for them.
Awesome. Well, Tara, it's been a real pleasure having you on the show today. It's
Yeah,
been an
thank you.
honor to hear Cory's story and just hear how he's really impacted and influenced your life. I think he's set you off on a new course of life right now, and a journey that these gifts are. I kind of get this similar message with Cory that I got with Caden, that he's still giving you gifts and it's going to keep on coming the longer you go through life. So I'm really
Totally.
glad you're
Thank
open to
you.
hearing those signs from him. So
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Chris.
So I want to thank everybody for joining Tara and I today on this episode of the Empower Grief Journey. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with somebody that you know could benefit from Tara's story, about Cory. The Empower Grief Journey is about honoring your journey, embracing your emotions, and finding strength in your own time. I want to invite you to follow this podcast at empowergriefjourney.com. I also want you guys to know you're never alone on this journey, and together we can navigate grief with courage and compassion. Until next time, be kind to yourself and take your grief journey one step at a time.